For me, it really comes down to celebrating and spotlighting women. And in particular, because we're talking within the lighting industry, the amazing, amazing women that I've met over the now 20 years I've been in the business who are so passionate about the industry and lighting and helping consumers find the right light. So it really is about celebrating all those women across the country for me specifically that day. Last year, I was honored with the American Lighting Association Women in Lighting Leadership Award. And it was particularly significant for a couple of reasons. One, it was in conjunction with our company, Bulbrite, turning 50. And I also turned 50 last year. So it was a really pinnacle inflection point in my life, personally, as well as for the business. And then to win the award concurrently was just amazing. And then to see all the people come to the showroom where we had the ceremony at Market at June Lightivation last year, and see all the people that have helped me along the way. It definitely took a village to get where I am in the businesses. And it was nice to look out in the audience and see our sales reps that have been so supportive, our customers, my colleagues, even some of the toughest customers showed up, and just to celebrate the award itself, and also just, I think, the milestone for me personally and for certainly for the business. So that was like a really, really awesome, awesome day.
So, what does it mean to you to have a platform to inspire young women?
I'm very passionate about what I do. And I've recently discovered that I think for a very long time, I didn't really necessarily focus on the fact that I was a woman. I was just a business person in an amazing industry, running my company and working with colleagues and customers and reps. And it just recently, in the last couple of years, maybe it's because I'm getting more gray hairs, that I'm realizing that a lot of the success and the power that I have is because I'm a woman instead of in spite of being a woman. So that's a new revelation for me. And I'm still unpacking that a bit. But it's been an interesting sort of reflection to think like, wow, it is because I'm a woman and that I have certain skills that I think I've been able to develop. And I've certainly had a lot of coaches along the way that help nurture me, that have really fueled my success. It's because I am a woman. It's a different focus. And the other thing, and that sort of directly translates into where I spend some of my spare time. So I just recently actually became the co-chair of the Women in Lighting Committee of the American Lighting Association. I'm also on 2 alumni women boards for both my undergrad and grad work, and now starting to interact with young women, especially young students, especially in the field of business. It's really interesting to see, the 18 to 22-year-old undergrad business students that are just starting off, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and thinking about all the interesting challenges that they'll face along the way. And so for me, it's been really nice. I think this, turning 50 was a pivot for me, and to have a platform to be able to give back is really cool. I'm actually having a lot of fun, and I can't, like, the next 50 years are going to be, I think, more exciting than the first 50. So super psyched. It's interesting for my company because I think we have more women than men, and we have a lot of women on the leadership team. I think that for those people who have never worked in a company like Bulbrite, where we have a lot of seats at the table, it seems odd that you would be working where you're one of, or the only. I've recently joined some corporate boards where I'm the only woman on the board. So it's an interesting dynamic to be in a boardroom filled with men, and they have a different perspective. And I think it's important for women to have a seat at the table, A, because we have a different perspective, and B, we are a lot of the workforce out there, and certainly a lot of the kids that are coming into school and whatnot. So it's to make sure that our voice is heard and our perspective is different. Every perspective, whether at the intersection of not only your gender, but your cultural background, your age, all these different things create a mix of what makes us unique. And that's why I think it's important to have women of diverse backgrounds in leadership roles. The very, very first female leader that I was exposed to was my mom. She's a tough cookie. She's a tough cookie. She's the matriarch in our family. And she really had that balance of leading the family strategically with decisions of where we would live, what schools we should go to, who we should be hanging out with, that sort of stuff, as well as just being a partner to my dad. So, my dad's started the business in 1971, and she was right by his side. It was really the two of them, and without her there really would be no Bulbrite. So as much as my dad did a lot of the heavy lifting, they really were partners. And to this day, as much as I talk to him about the business, she'll throw in a zinger every once in a while at a Thanksgiving table, dinner conversation, and we'll look at her like, that was a really good question. So she's always been, and I'm the oldest of three children. I don't think any of my siblings would disagree that mom has always been the leader in the family and really showed us what it meant to be multifaceted, talented woman. Some of the work that I'm doing at Stern, so at NYU, which is where I got my MBA, we're working a lot with undergrad women and recent MBA grads as they look to get, either their first job or sort of that next big jump in your career. And just listening to women that are starting out in their business careers, it's, this balance of being true to who you are and finding your space in your organization, I think is challenging, right? Of speaking up and all these things that you've thought about perhaps and learned about in a classroom setting. And then you get to the real world and you're like, wow, maybe I don't have a voice. So one of the things that I do a lot of listening to actually podcasts and read. So that's one of my, how do I stay abreast of things that are happening and keep evolving myself, is always to be in learning mode. And so I'm listening and learning. And I always love meeting new students because I learned so much from, they're like, tell us what you know. I'm like, no, tell me what you know. Cause you know more than I do. It's 2022 and they know so much. And so I was reflecting upon a recent podcast. One of my favorite podcasts is listening to Dare to Lead by Brene Brown. And one of the people that she recently interviewed talked about being tough-minded on standards of performance. And I wrote this down so I could share this with you. Doug Conan was the gentleman that she was interviewing. He said, be tough-minded on standards of performance and tender-hearted with people. And to me, I kind of wrote that quote down and I stuck it up because it's the balance of and versus or. So a lot of times I think we're told you need to be tougher or you need to be a certain way. And I think part of the uniqueness, at least for me, of being a woman is the ability to be tenderhearted with people while also at the same time being tough on performance. So you're in business, you have objectives and goals that you want to reach, but it doesn't mean it's an or. So it's been this interesting, we've been talking a lot about to the young women that are starting in their career, saying, balance your tenderheartedness and your EQ, right, with your IQ and your performance. So this kind of relates to what we started with. I guess my younger self didn't know that my sort of meandering path of, I went in as a math major, then ended up with a theater major, then actually worked for an acting. Actually, we did some diversity training back in the early 90s. I'm dating myself here, with an ensemble where we did some acting. So I was forced to go on stage for a little bit. And then I went and got my MBA. And so I guess my younger self probably was a little bit anxious about the not so straight line path that I was taking. So in hindsight, of course, everything happens for a reason. I'm a big believer in that. All those experiences helped me become the person that I was and ultimately run the family business. So the advice that I would give to my younger self is, number one, don't overplan too much, right? I think there's a balance between winging it and over planning. So that's one. And two, when I reflect back on my life, I think I should have told my younger self to take more breaks in between big sort of things if you could. So I was very I graduated school, I got my first job, then I went to business school and I was working while I was getting my business. So I really didn't take a lot of those breaks, big chunks of, I think about professors that have sabbaticals. There's a reason for doing that. It's to give you space to reflect, to learn, and then plant new seeds for that next chapter. So now I'm much more deliberate. Wednesday is my no meeting day. And it's really, really hard for me to practice that, but it's my learning and creating space for conversations and seed planting day. And so I would tell my younger self, it's okay to take breaks. You don't have to conquer the world, every day burning the midnight oil, because it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And My 20-year-old self did not know that. I thought it was a sprint. And so now at the ripe age of 50, I know it's a marathon, and I'm only at mile 13. So a lot to come.